questioning the nature of reality was always a big part of my life, a driving force. I think many people get to the end of their life just regretting how they lived their life because they waited to the end of their life to find out what was truly important. All we take with us at the end of our life is what we've invested in our mind. 5 or 10 minutes of meditation can completely change whether that day is a day of misery and pain or a day of meaning.
Again, Chodor, thanks for being here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Adam. Thanks for inviting me.
Today, you're a Buddhist monk. You're teaching meditation and Buddhism in Canada. I wanted to understand a little bit where that journey began for you.
My journey began in my teenage years, actually. I experienced like lucid dreaming. So I had this experience of falling asleep at night and then becoming aware that I was dreaming. And this gave rise to quite a euphoric experience. Like I realized the power of the mind and how we can control the dream reality by controlling our minds and understanding that. And then this led to a big question in me. What about the waking state? Maybe the waking state is also like a dream and we just don't know it. And this curiosity sort of really burned inside of me, a passion to know what is the true nature of reality. And then I went to university, and I always had an interest in spirituality even during my university years, but got a little bit distracted by partying and doing all the student things that we normally do. And then after graduating from university, I came across a book, actually. I went into a bookstore. It's called Waterstones in the UK, and the Other Religions section. And I picked up a book on Introduction to Buddhism. And it was more of like a picture book describing Buddhism. And I took this book home, and I remember the exact moment I was sitting at the end of my bed in a shared house with other people, just sat. I opened up the book, and I read the first page, and it said, Buddha means awakened one, someone who is awakened from the sleep of ignorance. And as soon as I read that, I felt I've come home. This is it, because Buddha, he has understood the nature of reality, and it kind of resolved this question I had about lucid dreaming and the nature of reality.
And what age were you at this time when all of this is happening?
Yeah, I was 23 years old.
Wow.
When I went to my first meditation class. This was in Reading in the UK. That I went to Reading University. I studied computer science, and so it was 23 years old, and then 25 was when I made the call to really change my way of life. And so I knew, even though I was 25, this life is going to pass quickly. I'm 52 now. It seems like yesterday. It goes so quickly. And I wanted to use my youth in that way, actually, for me. I thought while I'm young and while I've got energy and vitality, I want to invest that energy into something meaningful. Yeah.
But was there some serious discontent with respect to the rest of your life and your work and your career?
More like an existential question. What is life about? That was the main unresolved issue for me, and discontentment for me. I found on an external level that my life was very comfortable. I was in a well-paid job. I had the company car, the phone, and comfortable conditions. I had a good set of friends in Reading where I live. But even though I was improving externally, there was something internally that didn't feel as though it was changing myself as a person. And that was something that I was afraid of living a life where I wasn't going to change internally. I'd just be changing externally. And the thought of that almost unbearable. I need to invest in internal development.
And what do you mean by that, changing internally? Because for a lot of people, it's just, I'm living my life, getting on with my career and getting on my work. And that is what life is. But when you say this internal change that you're talking about, what was that for you at 25?
At 25, developing internal qualities of mind, loving kindness, compassion and patience. At work, I didn't, that I wasn't being educated in that in any way. I sent on many courses to improve my worldly qualifications, but nothing at all to improve the qualifications of my mind. So, deepening my wisdom as well, like the questioning the nature of reality was always a big part of my life, a driving force. And I wasn't getting to explore that as deep as I would like to do in the work I was doing.
What exactly at the age of 25 did a deeper meaning mean to you back then?
I thought about what does meaning mean? What does it mean for something to be more meaningful than another? And if we have 20 minutes spare and you've got a choice on how you use that 20 minutes, and you can maybe mindlessly watch Netflix or scroll on your phone, or use that same 20 minutes to read about, let's say, patience or loving kindness, something that's going to lead to more long-term benefit, I think we'd all say that that is more meaningful. So to me, meaningful means what brings more long-term benefit. If you have £10 in your pocket and you can use that £10 to bring just some immediate relief from your pain, or that £10 somehow to create causes for more long-term happiness, I think we would say that's a more meaningful use. And I think it's the same with our lives. What for me, the most meaningful life is to use your life in what brings most long-term benefit to both yourself and others. And I thought, okay, so a meaningful life for me is to use my life in a way that will bring most long-term benefit to myself and other people. And that wasn't being resolved in the job I was doing. I felt, temporarily I'm bringing benefit to myself and maybe being able to help others a little bit. But really, it's only through following the spiritual path and improving our mind that we can bring this long-term benefit to ourselves and others. Even in our day-to-day life, we can go in and out of meaning. And it's not like once you've discovered the meaning of life, then your life, every moment is meaningful from that moment on. I wish it was that easy. You just discover...
flick a switch and you're good to go.
Flick a switch and you're good to go. Now your life is incredibly meaningful, and every moment's going to be meaningful. But I would say that life loses its meaning as soon as we follow our negative minds and delusions. Like if you think about it, if we have a relationship with our child, when you're loving them, cherishing them, practicing patience, it feels that the mind makes it meaningful. Things are not meaningful or meaningless from their own side. But when we're practicing Dharma with our children, with the situations in life, then it's meaningful, because in that moment, that virtuous mind is bringing you happiness, it's bringing other people happiness. And as we know in Buddhism, that it's creating good karma in the mind. And when we die, this moment, we take all of that goodness with us into our future lives. But I think in relationships, if you get jealous towards someone or you're angry at someone, in that moment, you're wasting your life. It's not carrying meaning. So I'd say through spiritual practice, our life carries more and more meaningful moments, and maybe a minute of meaning, 5 minutes of meaning. And we want, obviously, to reach this place where every moment is meaningful, but just to accept where we're at, not to expect, okay, I'm going to get this right. Every single moment of my life is going to be meaningful now. Like, put this huge pressure on ourselves. We just try our best to live every moment, turn up in the best version of ourselves we can, and to make that moment as meaningful as possible.
And what's worked for you when you can't do that? When it sounds like you're not feeling particularly positive, you wake up on a Monday morning, you're not feeling great.
I mean, one thing is to never grasp at your mind as inherently in that state. I think that's important. We all have these days where we wake up, we get out on the wrong side of the bed, we feel grumpy, but we don't have to. We don't have to remain with that. There's something we can do about it, and I think it's good not to go into our daily life without addressing that, because as we know in Buddhism, that our mind creates our reality and our responses to the world, and we operate from whatever space our mind is in. And I know sometimes I think, to use modern speak, that we have to install a peaceful operating system in the morning and operate from that space throughout the day. OS inner peace or OS loving kindness, but we have to make sure that operating space is up and running. So that's why I always encourage people to practice meditation in the morning. That 5 or 10 minutes of meditation can be absolutely priceless and change the outcome of the whole day. Like, why would you want to miss that? 5 or 10 minutes of meditation can completely change the rest of the day. It can completely change whether that day is a day of misery and pain or a day of meaning. Okay, so, the first thing, someone who's a sailor, the first thing they do, I imagine I've never been a sailor, but the first thing they do before they move the boat is what? They set the direction. But how long does that take in comparison to the duration of the journey? It may just be a few minutes, but once they've set the direction, the remaining journey is guided by that. But in the morning, we wake up, we don't even take the 2 minutes to set the direction. We just go in whatever direction our mind is facing at that time. So how precious just to spend those few minutes in the morning setting the direction, which for me is the intention, the mental piece and the intention. And then that becomes the guiding force behind all of our actions in the day. So that would be my advice to anyone, and that's my own personal practice. Is the morning is the most important thing. That sometimes I wake up and the bodhicitta, the love is not engaged or the compassion is not engaged, but it doesn't have to be like that. I can just sit in front of on my cushion and connect with my practice, get that OS installed that I'm going to use for the rest of the day, and then move into daily life with that.
And what is that purpose of your life for you, and how does that help us understand how we can find purpose?
Yeah, so the purpose of life for me would be to realize my highest spiritual potential. That's what I want to do with the rest of my life, to make as much progress as I can in realizing that potential.
And what does that mean?
Yeah, so using the life that's appearing to me. So for me, it's an ordained way of life to practice Dharma in as many opportunities as possible. And I think everyone has to practice Dharma within their own context, within their own life appearance, and to find as many opportunities as possible to practice positive minds, to practice virtue with family, with children, with work colleagues, always having in this mind the goal of realizing our full potential. Then every action is taking us closer and closer to the realization of that potential. So we feel every day has meaning. Yeah.
Sitting here, as you say, at the age of 52, that's what it means to you, and it's kind of makes sense to you now. At the age of 25, did you actually have that feeling in your heart that this is what I know a meaningful life to be, or was it just an existential crisis? I don't know what the point of this life is.
Yeah, definitely an existential crisis. But the big thing for me was I've got to make this life count. It just felt so important. And meditation on death, it was so powerful for me. We're just here for a brief moment. Even at 25, I really felt that. And I want to do something meaningful in my life. And the Buddhism I'd learned and the opportunity to move into a Dharma center felt really incredibly meaningful. This is the right thing for me to do at this time. But over the course of a weekend, actually, I moved from the city. I went to university, and all my friends were based in that city. And I gave up my work, and I moved to a different town. And I remember waking up thinking, where is it all now? And what have I done? What was interesting is confronting my mind fully for the first time, because it's amazing how we use our external conditions as props. We identify with our external conditions. So I was very identified with my work, my friends, the money, the reputation that I had. And when all that was taken away, I mean, it was my choice. It's not like someone took that away from me. When all that was taken away, I felt for the first time I'm left with my own mind without the props. And that was out of my comfort zone. I was looking at my mind we could say naked in a sense. There's nothing to hide here, and that gave rise to a bit of anxiety, definitely, to begin.
Just
Like,
a
I
bit.
thought, what have I done? Like, I questioned my sanity to begin with. I've given this perfectly good job and these good conditions. Now I've got none of that. And of course, as time goes by, we get more and more unqualified in a worldly sense. And, the IT world, it moves on so quickly. And I knew every month that went by, every year or whatever, I'd become almost a little bit more redundant because my skills are aging, So I saw the graspy mind come up, and how we grasp at things to maintain mental equilibrium or to keep our sense of identity. So for me, this big question came up: who am I? With all this taken away, who am I exactly? And I had to work through that.
And what was your initial answer to that? Who am I? So it's all taken away from you: reputation, status, money. You're sitting there with just your mind. And as you say, at that point, you're saying, am I sane in making this decision? What is it you're left with in that position? And how did you process that at that time? Because you're still young, and I'm guessing you're still learning the tools to process that with meditation and so forth.
It was funny because, again, I questioned my sanity on making this decision, but something deep in my heart was saying this is the right move. It may not be comfortable, but this is the right move to make. Yeah, I just watched the graspy mind wanting to go back to identity, the things that I knew. And I knew that my task in training my mind was to reduce the grasping. It's not the change that's causing the suffering. It's the grasping in what grasping at what you know. Letting go of the known can be very scary for people, and that's why we cling to it. But there's a freedom in letting go of the known, right? And I felt in a state of free fall as well. That sense of you just free falling and there's nothing to grasp at. But what I realized is that when our mind is peaceful, we don't feel the need to grasp at external things for our identity and who we are and our happiness. And I found that through, this took years for me. This wasn't like an overnight thing. Like 1 minute I'm freaking out, next minute I'm totally at peace with it all. It took years for my mind to settle into this new sort of position. But what I realized was through practicing meditation and through benefiting the center. So we say engage in virtue. Virtue is sort of any action or mind that's a cause of happiness. So cherishing others, practicing compassion, that I was developing a deeper sense of happiness from within, like more of an authentic happiness from within. And then I found my craving or my grasping at these sort of things declining. And it's one of the most powerful things that I read in Geshe's books in How to Understand the Mind, when he's talking within the context of concentration, just saying when we train in concentration, our mind becomes lucid and clear, and our craving at external forms of pleasure naturally declines. I love that word naturally, because it's not pushing away or suppressing anything. You naturally don't feel interested in those things in the same way as we did before. So I found through the meditation practice, through cherishing the center, engaging in positive actions, that naturally the graspy minds, the old identity, the things that I was attached to, began to fall away. Then my mind became more at peace with the change that I'd made.
Maintaining all those props and the identity that's propped up on it seems like, in the way you're explaining it, far more exhausting than letting it go and beginning to actually just get into a space where that you're at peace with life, or gradually at more peace with life.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree with that. It's people are basing their sense of I, their identity, on these external things that are impermanent. And impermanent things are always moving away from us. So it has to be stressful because we're trying to hold them close all the time. We want impermanent things to remain permanent, so that we can maintain a sense of security within us and that sense of identity, to protect that sense of identity. But of course, reality is going in the opposite direction. And I feel that's one reason why we stay in a constant state of stress and tension. But if we can develop that authentic happiness from within, through practicing meditation and so forth, then we can learn to be at peace without grasping at those things or needing those things to shore up our identity. Yeah.
Isn't it a little bit like if we don't have those things, we won't feel like we fit in, we don't feel like we belong, because our society seems to be set up to say when you have this, you will belong, you will feel accepted.
Yeah. I think we're conditioned, we're very conditioned in that way by society. And, you know, we do need those things to live a sensible and comfortable life. But ultimately themselves, they can't protect us from suffering. And I think the important thing is changing our relationship with those things, to have those things in our life, to understand that they do have a certain place, but not to be attached to them. I think that's a big thing in our practice.
You mentioned how this meditation on death was incredibly transformative for you. Can you explain a little bit how that helped in you in the letting go, moving from your corporate career into this whole new way of life?
By meditating on death, then the meditation is death is certain, and in 150 years' time, probably all of us are not going to be here on this planet, and the planet is going to be inhabited by a completely different set of people. And the time of death is uncertain. You know, many people die without obviously expecting that. And I felt that at the end of it's to do what is going to be most important to me at the end of my life, what is going to help me at the end of my life. And I could see that the things that I was attaching myself to, the things that I was basing my identity upon at the end of my life, would not be able to help me. And so that really helped reduce my attachment towards them. Yeah.
In which way?
Just seeing that at the end of my life, I can't take any of these things with me. Okay, so I think we've all had the experience of maybe packing a prohibited item in our hand luggage, like in the sense of something that's maybe going to get confiscated, some water or drinks, maybe even something quite valuable to you. I remember a friend of mine, they had a very expensive hairdryer, and when they took it through the security, the security personnel said, "This is a prohibited item. You know, you can't take this through." I'm not quite sure why, but it was so painful for her because she was so attached to this hairdryer, and how much mental pain that causes. Just one thing being taken away, and then you think at the end of our life, what is that going to be like when we're attached to many things, things that we can't take with us. So I just, that one example of the pain of that, and then the pain we'll experience at the end of our life when we're deeply attached to things and we can't take any of it with us. So that contemplation helped me when I meditated on that. What is it going to benefit me at the end of my life? What can I take with me at the end of my life? I can't take any of this with me.
But at the same time, you didn't, I would assume, I don't know, at 25, you didn't have the answers to what is it that when I invest my time now, or did you feel you had the answers? I invest my time in this, it's going to be meaningful to me at the end of my life.
Yeah, because I really felt that all we take with us at the end of our life is what we've invested in our mind. And I believed in a continuity of consciousness. When I first heard those teachings, it really resonated with me. And so all we take with us is the mind. And so that's the most important investment we can make.
And the person who doesn't believe in the continuity of consciousness, how can the meditation on death be useful to them? And especially if they're going through that kind of transition that you went through in your life.
Yeah, I think one powerful way of using the meditation on death is to think about death is going to come, whether we believe in continuity of consciousness or not, that there will come a time when we die, and to think what will be most important to us at the end of our life. Because I feel many people get to the end of their life and then realize what's most important to them, but then only to discover that they didn't invest in those things that are important to them. And then they have many regrets. I think many people get to the end of their life just regretting how they lived their life because they waited to the end of their life to find out what was truly important to them. So I think that during this life, the unimportant can appear as important and the important can appear as unimportant. There are many things that appear very important to us now, but at the end of our life won't be important. We might be thinking about redecorating our home, and the color of the wallpaper might seem incredibly important. We can actually fall out over that with our partner, like it should be pink and they're saying it should be magnolia, and literally you're not talking with one another because you've got attachment to your views. But then of course at the end of our life, will our dying sentence be it should have been magnolia, it should have been pink? Imagine how profound our life will end if the very last thing we say is it should have been magnolia. That summed up the entire story of our life. So of course those things, I think, at the end of our life, for maybe people who don't believe in continuity and consciousness, won't be important, and maybe they discover that relationships, family time is important, but perhaps they didn't give that the time they wish they had because they got wrapped up in work or other worldly stuff. So I'd say that even if people don't believe in the continuity of consciousness, this meditation is always very helpful to think about. I'm definitely going to die. The time of death is uncertain. What will be most important to me at that time, and to invest in those things, not tomorrow or next week, today. Why? Because I may die today. And to me, that's the recipe of living life without regrets. I think that's a recipe that every single person could use. Think about what's going to be most important to you at the end of your life, not when you get to the end of your life, but today. I may die today. Think about that now, and then invest in those things now, because then you know that when death comes, you will definitely live without regrets. So I think it's something everyone should do. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, for the person who has that question, okay, so I use this meditation on death. It focuses me on what matters most and where I invest my time and energy now. They come to the conclusion, so the opposite conclusion you came to, I'm going to invest in my career because that's really important to me. I'm going to invest in Bitcoin because that's really important to me. Because that's actually what I want to do, is I want to create this adventurous life. I want to go this place, I want to go that place, I want to tick off my bucket list. The meditation on death leading me to the conclusion, I'm just going to live that life.
If we don't know about the preciousness of our human life and our human potential, like the extraordinary human potential that our human life has, as we know from a Buddhist perspective, the potential to accomplish enlightenment, the state of limitless peace and joy, then the things you're mentioning may seem, that's a good way to use my life. But if you put them side by side, I've got the opportunity to attain some deeper, long-lasting inner peace that's going to bring benefit both myself and others, then I feel people start to see that actually that's the direction I want to go in. So I would encourage those people to explore the different ways in which we can use our life, and how adding a spiritual dimension to our life, understanding about the potential of our human life, and to see how actually moving in that direction brings a greater meaning than a lot of I think all of the worldly goals that people normally maybe strive for.
So in a world full of options, why is it that a spiritual life for you brought a sense of meaning to your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. So kind of going back to this point that what makes one thing more meaningful than another is the amount of benefit it brings to us. And if we had 10 minutes spare and we had this choice, which we have many choices, what to do with 10 minutes, to mindlessly scroll our phone, or to use that same 10 minutes to do something like practice a bit of meditation, or learn about a positive quality like patience, I think we would all say that's a more meaningful way to use that 10 minutes. And so for me personally, the most meaningful way to use our life is to use it in a way that brings most benefit, not just to myself, but to other people too. So there are many options, there are many things people can do with their life. And I chose the spiritual path because I believe for myself, and not only for myself, I believe if everyone connects with their spiritual potential, that will unlock the biggest capacity for them to bring true happiness to themselves, but also have an amazing capacity to help others too. But that's why I decided to choose the spiritual option, because it tapped in to the greatest meaning we can use our life, or I could use my life for. We don't have to change our externals to follow a spiritual way of life. It's all about the mindset we carry into these things. And, I could have stayed in the IT world, learning spiritual practice and integrating all of the teachings I was learning into my work, into my relationships with people. And that would have been a spiritual path and very powerful. But it was a very personal thing for me. Me personally, I felt that the way I will benefit people the most is practicing within an ordained context. But not to say that's the only way, of course, we can practice. There are so many ways in which we can practice. And I feel that's one of the beauties of our tradition, and is seeing just a whole myriad of different practitioners practicing within their own life's roles, whether that's be a CEO or working in corporate world as a parent. We see all these different permutations of Dharma being practiced. But it felt for me personally, my practice would be more powerful and beneficial to myself and others within this ordained context. And I would say that's definitely the case. I've taught at many centers in the last 25 years, however many it is. I've moved around and met a lot of people.
So there's a theme here that I think keeps emerging in this conversation of being your authentic self. For you personally, what does that actually mean?
Being authentically myself means to not hide, not to be something that I'm not, and to be honest with myself and the way I interact with other people. When I first went to my first class I went to, what was completely refreshing for me was meeting a teacher who's authentically themselves. And that was a breath of fresh air when coming from a corporate environment. I didn't feel that people were so authentic because they were trying to maybe protect their identity themselves. And so I feel that following the spiritual path, we become more and closer to our true nature of who we really are, because we're grasping an identity at the moment which is not our true identity. So how can we be authentically ourselves if we're grasping at an identity that's not the truth of who we are? We grasp at ourselves as being this inherently limited individual, and grasping meaning that believing that to be the truth. And that's what creates our own prison of samsaric dissatisfied existence. And so the more we can let go of almost who we're not and the illusory self, we become closer to discovering who we truly are. And I feel the whole Buddhist path is about that, is to finally discover who we truly are, who is our true identity, and to be that authentic self.
And for those who feel like, well, when I'm being my authentic self, I'm being my stressed out, overwhelmed, anxious self, people really turn away. I'm trying to be authentic. I'm trying to express what I feel. But you seem to be talking about something very different to who we truly are.
Yeah. So when our mind is unpeaceful, we're stressed, we're deluded, we are never seeing reality. We're never seeing the truth. And because our mind is under the influence of delusion all the time to some degree, we're never perceiving reality. So when we're stressed, when we're anxious, what's appearing to us may seem like authentic and true, but it's not. It's being distorted by the agitation in our mind. When we look into a pond and the water's rippling, we get a distorted reflection. It's not authentic what we're seeing. So when people are stressed, we're not seeing ourselves in an authentic way. We're not seeing the world in an authentic way. And the more peaceful our mind becomes, the more in touch we are with the reality of who we are and the reality of the world around us. And that's why I always advise people, actually, if you're feeling stressed, then don't try not respond to how things are appearing to you at that time, because you're not seeing things in a clear way. Better to step away from the situation, get some mental peace, then things will appear more in accordance with reality. Respond to it in that way. So yeah, I'd say to those people that although it may seem like the authentic you, when your mind is unpeaceful, you're not seeing who you are clearly, you're not seeing the situation clearly. And it's only by transforming our mind into a peaceful state that we will truly discover the authentically who we are.
And what is that?
A mere appearance. Ultimately, who we are is just a mere appearance to our mind. That the self does not exist outside of our mind. It's just a mere appearance. We're dreaming a self. Yeah, and unfortunately, we're dreaming a self of suffering and going back to that grasping it as being the truth of who we are, but it's not the truth of who we are.
And when I let go of the dream of the suffering self, what self do I find that you keep referring back to as the true self?
Yeah, a self that you recognize as just an appearance to your mind, a dreamlike self.
This word grasping keeps coming up quite a bit. Can you just explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so, in his teachings, Buddha explained how everything appears to us in a mistaken way. So basically, our mind is seeing things in a distorted way, and that things appear to exist outside of the mind and separate from the mind. And that's just not a few things. That's everything that we know, everything that we that appears to us seems to be on the outside of our mind. And that appearance is deceptive. And through meditating on ultimate truth, we can see through that illusion and realize it's just an appearance to mind. So the grasping mind is the mind that believes that apparent appearance to be the truth. So as I'm talking to you, you appear to be on the outside of my mind, completely independent of my mind. The grasping mind then grasps at that appearance to be true. And that grasping is what keeps us trapped in the prison of samsara, because whatever appears to us as pleasant appears to have this quality from their own side to make us happy. And whatever appears to us as unpleasant appears to have this quality from its own side to cause us pain and unhappiness. And we grasp, so we believe those appearances to be true. So we spend our whole lives then trying to chase and hold on to attractive things. That's the mind of attachment. And then pushing away things that appear to be inherently bad, that are the cause of our suffering. And that's the state of our existence. There's so much push, pull, running towards one thing we believe is a cause of happiness from its own side. I want this to secure my sense of I. I don't want that in my life because it kind of threatens my sense of I and causes me suffering. And, Venerable Geshe, he explains in 8 steps that self-grasping and self-cherishing cause us to see life as a constant struggle to serve and protect the sense of I. And so that self-grasping and self-cherishing are the cause of all the pain we experience. But that's the grasping mind, is this grasping at the apparent appearance of things being outside of our mind as true, as real.
And if I let go of this grasping, though, do I have no more goals, no more dreams, and no more difficult people in my life that I have to deal with?
You would have goals, we would have dreams, but we stop grasping at them as being outside of the mind, grasping at things as being inherently existent. It feels like we're aiming for a dreamlike enlightenment. At the moment, we're dreaming the dream of samsara. We're dreaming ourselves as a suffering living being. We're dreaming ourselves as someone with delusions. We don't really have delusions, like inherently having delusions. And through following a dreamlike path of the six perfections and bodhicitta, we can get this dreamlike result of enlightenment, but none of it's inherently existent. And that's what makes it possible. That's what makes everything possible. So anyone who stops grasping, they still have purpose, but they're just realizing the dreamlike nature of everything that they're doing.
So what's this samsara then?
Yeah, so samsara is defined in different ways in Buddhism. Sometimes it's defined as the cycle of uncontrolled rebirth, sometimes the cycle of contaminated life. But one way in which I try to explain it in simple terms, it's just the experience of life, or we can say lifetimes, with our mind contaminated with delusions. And it's that contamination in our mind that causes us to experience life in the nature of suffering. If we're with our partner or with a child, the moment we get angry, we know that delusion contaminates that experience and it causes it to be the nature of pain. And so, Buddha explained that because the continuity of consciousness doesn't end at the end of our life, we take another rebirth, and in each life, our mind is contaminated with delusions that causes us to experience life in the nature of suffering. And the root delusion is self-grasping ignorance. That's the cause of all the contaminated, unpeaceful minds that we have. And by practicing the spiritual path, we can heal our mental continuum. We can heal our mind and experience our mind free from delusions, and then experience life without delusions, uncontaminated life. So bringing an end to our delusions doesn't bring an end to life. It just brings an end to the experience of life with our mind contaminated with delusions.
So you were inspired by lucid dreaming when you were a teenager. How did that make sense to you when you started to practice meditation and Buddhism?
Yeah, so when I got interested in lucid dreaming, within the dream experience, I could see how everything was an appearance to the dreaming mind. And to have some mindfulness at that dreaming level was quite euphoric, because I knew I could change the dream because it's an appearance to my mind. And so for many years I looked into lucid dreaming, studied lucid dreaming. But then the question came about the waking state, that just maybe the waking state is an appearance to mind, like the dream state. And if we could become aware of that, what power that would give us to be able to change the world and change the way the world appears. So that was like a question I always had. And when I went to the meditation classes, then there was teachings on the ultimate nature of reality, and how Buddha taught that actually the waking state is an appearance to mind, like a dream. And the only difference between the waking state and the dream state is the mind that it's appearing to, that the dream world appears to the dreaming mind, and the waking world appears to the waking mind. It's just an appearance to mind. And that really resonated very strongly with me. Going back to the lucid dreams, it's almost like Buddha is someone who is very lucid. It's a lucid person who understands that the world is an appearance to their mind. And there's ultimate freedom comes from that realization. And again, when I read the book on Introduction to Buddhism, and I saw the translation of Buddha means someone who's awakened from the sleep of ignorance, I thought this is it. This is someone who's basically became lucid ultimately and really understood how everything exists. Yeah.
And to your point, how does ultimate freedom come from that realization?
Yeah, so I think it's amazing that we've all had the experience of having a nightmare, and it appears so real to us, and we're so bought in to that appearance, and we can have extraordinary anxiety, extraordinary fear, but when we wake up in the morning, it's crystal clear it was just an appearance to the dreaming mind, and there's an enormous relief from that. I think we've all had that experience. And so by extension, if we realize that the waking state is equally just an appearance to mind like a dream, if we could realize that truth directly, we could then stop the grasping entirely and, like waking up from a nightmare, be permanently free from the sufferings of samsara, of the life that's appearing to us right now. And that's what keeps me personally. It's one of the main driving forces of me in my ordination and my practice, is this wish to realize the truth. I mean, definitely from day one, I want to know what the truth is. And meeting with Dharma, Buddha's giving us this clear path to discover the truth directly with our own mind. It's something that cannot be given to us by AI. No one can tell us the truth intellectually or conceptually. We can only be shown the way. And Buddha's very clear teachings, you just follow these lines of reasoning, and where it leads you is to your own direct realization of that truth. And through that realization, you will realize that the world didn't exist in the way that it appeared to exist, like a solid concrete reality. You will realize the truth yourself. It's a mere appearance to mind. That realization will bring all your suffering to an end. And then because all our suffering comes from grasping at the world as being real. And again, we can just go back to our dream experience, like going back to my lucid dreaming. As soon as I realized I was dreaming, I stopped grasping at it as real. There's nothing to fear. Even if a lion came up in front of me, it's just a dream. It's a dream. It's an appearance to mind. Maybe I responded in the dream, ran away or whatever. But so it's stopping the grasping. Yeah.
So what about an empty bank account, or I was just fired at work? Is that a dream?
It is a dream also. It's not a good dream, maybe. And it's not the appearance of the empty bank account that's the cause of our suffering. It's the grasping at that as being real, as being more than an appearance to mind. So let's say you went to sleep tonight, Adam, and you dreamt, you put in your card and you check the balance and it's empty. Would you freak out? Probably in the dream, because you thought it was real. But when you wake up, you realize it was just an appearance to the dreaming mind. So we stop our grasping at that. But I would say that, of course, even though Buddha taught everything is an appearance to mind, we still do need to act within this conventional world that's appearing to us. It exists and it functions. We need to have some money in our bank account to keep a dreamlike job, in order to maintain our dreamlike partner and our dreamlike family, to find dreamlike purpose in our life. So yeah, we still need to be within the world and within the conventions of this world.
You mean when I wake up on Tuesday morning, I put the bank card in the account, it's still a dream, like nothing in it. How do I deal with that?
Yeah.
Because for me, that feels very real.
Yeah. It's just an appearance to mind. And our suffering arises because that appears to be more than just conception, imitation, or an appearance to your mind. So it's finding this balance between recognizing everything that appears to me is a dreamlike appearance, but I do need to respond according to the conventions of the world. Geshe uses the example of an actor on a stage, plays a certain part, and maybe this actor, at one point, they have to put a card in the cash machine to look at what their balance is. And maybe it comes up 0. And so they need to play the part of going to work and earning some money to put some money back in the bank account. But all the time they're realizing it's just an actor playing this part, and the money itself is just a part of the play.
So is it almost like we just bring a lighter touch to life and there's more space to respond more constructively? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like, again, people who maybe have some lucid dream experience, then it definitely brings some lightness and flexibility to how you respond to the dreaming world. And that's the same in the waking state, that if we realize it's just an appearance, it gives us the lightness and flexibility to respond in the best way.
So on this journey for you, it was a book that sparked all of this kind of opening in your heart. What book would you recommend for people listening to?
Yeah, I think a great book to start with would be How to Transform Your Life by Venerable Geshe. It's a beautiful book. It's super clear. And Venerable Geshe talks about the importance of mental peace. And right from the first chapter of that book, he does explore the nature of reality. And if people have been interested in learning more about that, I think that's a great go-to. And also about our spiritual potential, not just our own freedom, but working for the freedom and happiness of others. And a beautiful explanation of the fundamental building blocks of Buddhism, karma, past and future lives, refuge, and so forth. And then Geshe explains the beautiful path of loving kindness and compassion, and developing this heart wish to realize our full potential for the benefit of others. And then finally, the beauty of emptiness, ultimate truth, to realize, the true nature of reality.
Chodor, thanks so much for dropping in today.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's been great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.